I would say overdubbing. I think after you get the bed tracks and the core ingredients, the spice that you can add on. Sometimes it's just some additional guitar tracks or keyboard sounds. I mean, it's all fun, but that part it's I don't know. It's a weird area where you can play around with, but core part of recording is done, and then there's that other pressure, which and importance of mixing, and then there's that weird gray area in between them. That's kind of fun.
I'm Eric Chen. You are listening to Inlet Wire, your direct line to BC artists. In this episode, we got Andy Schichter from Park Sound Studio in North Van. We get into how Andy got started as a producer and how he builds it step by step, and what life of a producer really looks like behind the scenes.
Well, I'm a music producer, audio engineer, mixing engineer, and owner of Park Sound Studio in North Vancouver. So I run the studio with another audio engineer. We've been at this location for 3.5 years, and prior to that we had another studio in North Van for 5 years, and yeah, I just love to make music.
If you follow the Vancouver music scene, Andy's work has probably crossed your radar. Maybe more than once. Rare Americans, Carrot Bateman, Summer's Brother, Anna Katerina, K-Brad, and plenty more. So the big question is, how did Andy get started?
I think just being fascinated with different albums as a kid. I'd constantly just listen to CDs with my Discman as a kid, and just I was obsessed with how different records sounded, and just some of my favorite bands, hearing the progression of records. You'd hear one record and then a record following it, and it's wow, this sounds bigger and more expansive. There's more instruments. The drums sound completely different, and just kind of wanting to know why that was the case. Was it budget? Was it going to a different studio? Was it equipment? Was it something the engineers and technicians were doing? I was just obsessed with records and why they all sounded different.
So that's the spark, the obsession phase. But to turn that into a real career path, you need a first concrete step. And for Andy, that step was college.
I went to a program at Vancouver College in London, Ontario called Music Industry Arts. Because, when you're towards the end of high school, grade 11, grade 12, kind of figuring out what you want to do, I realized that's something I wanted to try. I was always fascinated with any kind of multimedia, music, film, graphic design, all that kind of stuff, marketing. And this music industry arts program looked great. And I remember my mom found it when, she was helping me research what schools to go to. And London was only an hour away from where I grew up in Waterloo. So it seemed like a great fit. So I went there. After college, I remember talking to the program coordinator at the college about what to do. There's only so many options if you're not going to do live sound or post production, kind of work in film and TV and dialogue editing, all that kind of stuff, sound design. But for actual just music production, one of the paths you can do is go to a studio, become an intern, and hope that the audio engineer retires or dies, and then maybe you can move up. And it felt it was such a grind to move up that way. And just hearing some of the stories with how interns are treated, and just kind of that nasty hierarchy that exists in a lot of big studios, that wasn't really a path for me.
So school gave Andy the foundation, but the real turning point was what he did right after. Instead of waiting around for an opportunity, he went looking for one.
Program coordinators suggested I just look on the back of the CDs I owned, and find out who produced them, and just make some cold calls, just reach out to some people. So I did that. I reached out to one of my favorite producers, Tucker Martine in Portland. who was like working on the Decemberists and My Morning Jacket, Sufjan Stevens, lots of indie bands there. Death Cab for Cutie did some mixes for, started assisting him. So it was like fly from Toronto to Portland and did that for a few years. Got to work on a Decemberist record in 2011, which was a dream. And that's kind of what led me to the West Coast, because I tried to move to Portland, but just like couldn't get past the visa process and fell in love with Vancouver. So I came out here and bought a bunch of recording gear and like worked out of my apartment and would start to rent rooms to record drums, and one thing leads to another, and just keep building up, acquiring more gear, getting more clients, and that's what led me here.
Is something on your mind? There's a new disguise, better than before, better than before. Oh, too much of the same thing all the time stands out, and it feels like you're trying so hard to fit in right. So stand up if it feels like there's something on your mind.
If you've been in the scene long enough, you've probably heard of Andy's band, Echo Nebraska. And because he's been on the other side of the glass, playing in bands, it shaped how he works with artists in the room.
Maybe not so much in the way of producing, but it's kind of the conversations you have with the artists in the studio about, like, understanding the struggles of just like touring in Western Canada, how expensive it is, how little money you make from shows, how far shows are, especially here. You have to drive hours for like a mediocre gig. You definitely like empathize, and you can work with artists. You understand budgets. I do a lot of grant writing, and I kind of know that sometimes you have to wait, depending on like, okay, we're waiting on this grant to come in, so we can't really start until we know we have money. But then there's also like potential tours and festivals that we have to like kind of be flexible to move around, and you're constantly having conversations about like single artwork, marketing, video production, doing live performance videos, all those kind of like marketing admin stuff, which I love to do anyways. So I definitely have a lot of those conversations with artists as I'm recording.
When I'm blowing in the wind, I need you to catch my breath. When I'm tired of breathing in, you made it easy to fall right in. You got a hold of me, so tell me that you'll never let me go.
So yeah, sounds like a tough job Andy's having. That's a bit more than the rock and roll we usually picture. And before we wrapped up, my last question is, what's the most rewarding part of being a producer?
I think hearing or seeing people's comments or hearing comments on the songs like after it's been released, which maybe it's just an Instagram comment or hearing the song on the radio and what like the radio host has to say about a song. Hearing interesting feedback from, maybe it's someone they emailed at a record label or a music supervisor, and just hearing that feedback, like just, a third party kind of thing to say about the song, just knowing that the work you that you like put a lot of effort into is kind of being rewarded, and people dig it. And then another thing too with the grant writing, it's nice to tell people that like, hey, just got you thousands of dollars for this project. It's fun to see people smile when you tell them they've been given a bunch of money to do this thing they want to do.
Producers do a lot more than most people think. It's not just what happens in the studio, it's everything around the release too. So next time you hear your new favorite track, take a second to check the production credits and give some love to the people behind the scenes who help make the magic happen, just like Andy does. And before we go, I will leave you with this.
You don't want to feel comfortable. You want to keep evolving. Yeah.
That's it for this episode of Inlet Wire with Andy Schichter. Don't forget to check out the feature playlist for this episode in the show notes. I'm Eric Chan, and this is Inlet Wire, your direct line to BC artists.